So welcome to a mandatory compliance, regulatory compliance series, which has been organized by the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce and WTES Novus Fails. This series has been running for 2 years, and today we've hosted a number of regulatory agencies, including the GIPC, the Office of the Companies Registry, which is the ORC, and today we're happy to host the Environmental Protection Agency. And the essence of this platform is to educate the business community on compliance obligations and the statute and regulatory guidance from the government agencies. So we are happy to have today's session, and we have a very important personality, which is the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, to talk to us about EPA's work. So I'll give a brief history about him, or brief profile about him. But first of all, my name is Theophilus Tewia. I'm a director at the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce. I'm also managing partner for WTES Novus Fails and a law lecturer at the UPSA Law School. So our guest for today is Dr. Henry Kwabena Kokofu, who is a lawyer and executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency, former deputy chief officer, executive officer of the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development. He is a party deputy head of the delegation of the COP28, and presidential envoy to the Ghana chair of Climate Environmental Vulnerable Group. He holds a PhD in environmental science. He has LLM in oil and gas. He's a barrister at law. He also holds MSc Agroforestry. He also holds MSc Defense and International Politics. He has LLB and Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Management. He's an astute politician, a legal practitioner, expert in climate change, defense and conflict management. He serves on several government boards, including Petroleum Commission, Lands Commission, Ghana Maritime Authority, Environmental Protection, where he's currently the executive director, and Public-Private Partnership Committee of the Ministry of Finance and others. So, Dr. Kokofu, we are happy to have you. We have our audience on the platform, so we'll give you the chance to talk through your presentation, and there'll be question and answers. So you have your members, your participant on the line. You're welcome.
Good morning to all colleagues. Environmental Protection, happy to have this forum to engage and to interact with members of the UKCC. Very soon we shall go on with the presentation, and I hope that at the end of the day you will be able to have some good discussions. We may learn some more from you, the participants, and then in order to enrich our ideas and goals here at EPA. Yes, I'll begin by a brief introduction. We're saying that the EPA of Ghana is the leading public entity that is mandated to protect, co-manage, and improve the environment in the country. And this can be seen at Section 2 of Act 490 of 1994. And it is the summary form of the functions of EPA. And we do recognize the 1992 Constitution, as per Articles 36(9)41K, gives birth or impetus to this notion. However, the operational law is the Environmental Protection Act 1994 for Act 490 with the enabling legislation LI 1652, that's Environmental Assessment Regulations. There are other standards, guidelines, policies, national and international regulations that are employed to ensure effective management of the environment. It is also important to note that the mandate covers two broader areas: the built environment that represents the physical and the natural environment, that's the renewable and the non-renewables. And as we all know, the concept of environment is further broken down to the terrestrial, aquatic, and atmospheric ecosystems. So All these are there for EPA to ensure. And we do that through some activities. And key ones are the environmental impact assessment that EPA conducts to assess the potential damage or impact that a proposed project may have on the environment. And here we're looking at mining, mineral resources, the construction industry, the industrial activities, including manufacturing and all others. We review environmental compliance before issuing necessary environmental permits. All these are made due in the LI System 52, and it makes it an offense for anyone to commence a project or undertaking or development without recourse to EPA. The stages of EIA process, we do screening, and at that point we decide if an EIA is required. And we do scoping. That's where we decide it needs to be covered in the assessment and a report that needs to be reported in the EIA report. We prepare the EIA report, making an application and consultation, and decision-making, post-decision making monitoring systems. We do environmental monitoring and compliance and monitors of industrial and commercial activities to ensure compliance with environmental laws and regulations. We conduct inspections, issue compliance notices, and take necessary enforcement actions against violators. The environmental permits are issued to regulate various projects across different sectors, including energy, mining, agriculture, waste management, infrastructure, hospitality, healthcare, manufacturing, transportation, and general construction. These permits are normally accompanied by a permit schedule, which spells out the permitting conditions, i.e. the do's and the don'ts. Some of the activities that we do also involves pollution control and waste management. And here, EPA works to control and reduce pollution levels by enforcing regulations on air quality, water quality, hazardous waste management, and industrial emissions. Standards are set. We inspect facilities, warehouses in particular, and other facilities that goes with manufacturing. And we provide guidelines on pollution prevention. Most importantly is to reach out to the average Ghanaian or the general public, so to speak. And we do so through education and awareness creation. And we promote environmental education through workshops, seminars, and awareness campaigns. We collaborate with other stakeholders to educate the public, businesses, and institutions about sustainable environment practices and the importance of preserving natural resources. Another thing is to environmental regulations and policies. The EPA is responsible for formulating and implementing environmental regulations, guidelines, and policies in Ghana. We develop frameworks and standards related to land use planning, deforestation, wildlife protection, and environmental conservation. And in recent times, we are aware of the climate change conversation, or the carbon credit and carbon market systems. They are all under the auspices of EPA. We do natural resource management plans, and these EPA are to play a crucial role in the conservation of biodiversity, and other forest resources are also managed. Make sure we do promote sustainable land management practices as well. Yeah. As I said earlier on, we do not rely on the main law, that's the Act 490 of 1994, but also on some policy statements, international conventions, and liaising with other institutions to work together to get these environmental strategies working. And for compliance, we are aided by Ghana's environmental policy, Ghana standards for environmental and health protection, requirement for ambient noise control, Ghana standards for health protection, requirement for air quality, point source or stack emissions, Ghana standards for environmental health protection, requirement for effluent discharge. We do also deal with hazardous electronic and other waste classification, control and management regulation. National guidelines for healthcare waste management in Ghana also aids us, and other international conventions that includes IFS guidelines, Basel Convention, the Namata Convention on Mercury, Rotterdam, Basel Conventions, and all others. To ensure compliance, we have strategies that we embark on, and one of such is for all sectors to enforce. We do regular compliance and enforcement exercises programs. Monitoring of permit schedules are normally hinged on the sector's activities, sectors-related standards, guidelines, policies, conventions, and the site-related specific conditions. The awareness creation. We embark on vigorous awareness creations to sensitize the general public, as has been said earlier on. The agency's mandate and other government policies on the environment. We do establish a central database management system, which captures every environmental permit issued for ease of reference, how they are categorized into the sectors. We engage them to remind and inform them about the need to comply with all the environmental laws governing their businesses. We do organize training sessions on regular basis and finding out from them or the proponents the challenges they face in meeting their regulatory requirements. We have also introduced a reward system that deals with whistleblowing concepts to citizens, those who are prepared to profile information as environmental infractions or offenses. There is also an automation service. Traditionally, the agency service have been mainly manual and paper intensive. And the plans have been there to revise the strategic plan that focuses on changing this trend by harnessing the use of online activities. So it has helped with efficiency and then also reducing wastage in the system by way of paper and all others. We do also have continuous emission monitoring, real-time program. This one has been developed with a third party, a private sector as such, and it's due to be rolled out most probably the coming months. And the target, we've done the piloting already and we are satisfied. So very soon, continuous emission monitoring system in real time is to be rolled out. The use of GPS receiver. The agency has several GPS devices for use by all its field officers. Drone technology is also employed, even though we don't have as many as we wish to have, but we're doing with whatever we have. Enforcement regimes after monitoring and then also ensuring compliance. Non-compliance offenses comes with sanctions and penalties as per the regulations. And the regulations 29 of the LI 1652 offenses and penalties spells out the entire process or regime. By way of conclusion, we can say that the EPA emphasizes and continue to do so the importance of ensuring monitoring, compliance, and enforcement of all undertakings. 2, it must be noted that non-compliance comes with sanctions, and that includes prosecution at the court of law, which the consequences are spelled out there. And it is also important to note that EPA does not work in isolation, but we do work with institutions like Ghana Investment Promotion Council, that's GIPC, National Petroleum Authority, the various ministries, the Ghana Standard Authority, Ghana Revenue Authority, Immigration Services, and what have you. So our mandate cuts across the entire economic activities of this country. Well, the agency is very happy with the approach the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce have taken in seeking guidance with the Ghana EPA in relation to this particular topic. And we think and hope that the goals or objectives in understanding our act and then the ally in ensuring environmental compliance, as well as your expected outcomes to increase understanding and awareness by the UK GCC member companies of the importance of compliance with the various regulations laid out by the EPA for businesses in Ghana are met. Having said this, I think it's important to inform you that the environmental protection law, the mother law, is currently undergoing changes, or it's being changed to Environmental Protection Authority by courtesy of the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Cabinet has approved, and it is with Parliament as we speak, gone through the first and second readings, is at the third reading for consideration. So within a month or so, Parliament will approve and the President will gleefully assent to it. And that law will give more impetus to EPA by way of authorization. EPA will have the powers to cause arrest. When the law becomes operational, EPA will not rely on the police service to cause arrest. EPA itself will be deemed as a quasi-security institution, national security institution. So beyond causing arrest, EPA will have the prosecutorial powers. EPA will be a force to reckon with, and it will be placed and positioned to deal with global environmental issues alongside national environmental issues. Thank you very much for your attention, and we are ready for comments, questions, and all that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentation, telling us about activities of the EPA and what you have been doing all this while, including efforts to amend your law. So it's time for questions. I would ask a few questions. Then maybe we will ask some of the panel members to also ask questions. The essence of this presentation or this forum is to let businesses know what's expected of them. And so I will try to ask questions that will go along that line. So my first question relates to which industries or which activities are expected to register with the EPA. If you look at the economy, it's quite a big sector. We have services, so we want to know which businesses or which sectors or which activities are expected to register with the EPA. So that's the first question, Doctor. Having regards to the structure of the economy, it's quite a big sector. It's a very big one. So we want to know which entities come under your purview.
Yes, your question is simple and straightforward. To begin with, all activities or undertakings that has potential impact on the environment are to be registered with EPA. And to be more specific, the LI System 52 of 1999, if it can be seen on the screen, yes, page 13, Schedule 1, Regulation 1, Sub-Regulation 1. It says, undertakings requiring registration and environmental permits, agricultural and related services. They are listed here. Agriculture throughout fishing, mining, forestry services, logging. Then it comes to manufacturing. Manufacturing, we are talking about food, beverages, rubber products, plastic products, and you are talking about textiles, primary textiles, wood, paper and allied products, primary metals, fabricated metal products, transportation and all that. Non-metallic products. So it goes on and on and on. There's Schedule 2 of Regulation 3 also deals with the undertakings for which environmental impact assessment is mandatory. It also spells out all that. And time will not permit. Otherwise, I would have gone 1. But broadly speaking, manufacturing, all that encompasses what manufacturing are to be registered and permitted. Industries, various ones. You can talk about the mining industry, the petroleum industry, both upstream and midstream, and then the downstream. You can talk about energy production, distribution, and all that. You can also talk about construction, warehousing, building infrastructure like airports, seaports, whatever you have also. Hospitals, indeed, mortuaries are being monitored and registered and permitted. So it's a broader scope. Almost every aspect of our economic and natural resources exploitation comes under the purview of environmental protection and permitting regimes.
Thank you, Doc. Just a follow-up question. You talked about sectors that must register. Would it cover wholesalers? I mean, those who sell, petroleum products or other products or services, or even accommodation? Would it cover those entities, those class of people?
Yes, when it comes to petroleum products, wholesalers and retailers are captured under the downstream, so they are very much in there. Then you're talking about accommodation. That's commercial
Accommodation
activities. That's the hospitality industry. However, we do have categories. That's the small scale, medium scale, and large scale when it comes to fees and charges. So we know how to deal with them and all that. So yes, basically everything is captured. And I must say that as part of our challenges, EPA as now is unable to cover all the areas. So that is another future thing that we need to look at to make sure our hands covers everything within the space.
Thank you, Doc. So having talked about that, my next question borders on, do you have a separate requirement to obtain a permit and another requirement to register with EPA?
Well, you come in and you want a permit. It's the registration process.
Okay.
Yes, we register you, and then we know the scope. We do the screening to know the scope of your activity, and then we know where to place you by way of categorization, and it follows the process. So it is the first step of getting to EPA, the registration, and then it follows. Initially, you will come with an application for EPA permit. That's fine. That begins the registration process. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right.
A lot of people have described the process in that permit as quite cumbersome because of the need for impact assessment to be made.
Yeah.
I want to know from your end what steps you have taken to simplify the process for the business community.
Well, it used to be, but in recent times, we've done some more simplifications. But I do agree that we may need to do some more to ensure that proponents do not waste time to start with. People don't get frightened. People simply are just frightened. And then two, people think the whole exercise is to get to know business secrets and other things. So we need to demystify it. We've done some good work to demystify all the negativities that surrounds with EPA permitting and EPA licensing. So we welcome any suggestions that may help us to, as it were, simplify to the best acceptable form, so we can all move along.
All right, thank you very much. So just a follow-up, do you have authorized entities that are expected to carry out the impact assessment, or it's a free market for everyone?
Well, that brings in consultancy or consultation. As stands now, consultants are available. They make themselves available to proponents. We do have a list of some consultants which we want to regulate that aspect as well. But then the challenge there is EPA suggests a consultant or a consultant registered with EPA does your work, and you are not so satisfied and all that. We, as the regulator and referees, will then be found in a fix. You suggested consultant A, and he has worked, and you are rejecting the same way. So we want as much to be independent of the consultants or the consultation services as much as possible. So we are in a dilemma as to bring them under our umbrella, regulate them, and then ensure that they are available for the proponent, or we allow it as it is, free market. It comes in and we are good to throw away their work, and then also to accept or not to accept their work. Yeah. So for now, it's a free market.
All right, thank you very much. Just a follow-up question on the permit. When you issue a permit to a business or an undertaking, what is the duration of the permit? Is it to perpetuity, or is valid for maybe 2 years or 18 months?
Well, the longest term you have is 18 months. 18 months. The idea is to get 1 year. That's a 12 months. But you need that extra prepare and all that. So when it comes to the time of renewal, you do not have to wait till the expiry date before you come in. You need to start the process earlier. It may take you a month or two, depending on the exigencies of the time, the circumstances that you find yourselves in. So it's 18 months. So to say.
Okay. So in respect of the permit, what kind of conditions do you attach to the permit for the business community or for the entity or undertaking? Do you attach any specific conditions to it, or are they expected to have some returns submitted to your office within the periods that they have the permit?
Well, we have what we call schedules to a permit. The schedules are preconditions or precedents to giving you the permit, and then during the lifetime of the permit, I mean the process that we permitted you, and then and also post after. So the schedules deals with 3 steps before you begin with your processing or your manufacturing, whatever you ask for, your venture. So before you begin, the schedule will spell out the do's and the don'ts. When you are undertaking, when ongoing, what you need to do, and then after you've done or when you're about to do. So there are certain permitting that requires decommissioning the project. For instance, if it's a mining operation, the schedule will give you what to do before you enter into the production line. And whilst in the production line circle, what you need to do, what you need not to do. After the life of the production line, you have got to decommission and all that. So I hold in my hands here, if you can see, this is for a particular company. It's a schedule to the environmental permit, project description, activities, facilities, and all that. The impact, in this particular one, there will be an impact, air quality impact. We have what you've got to do about it. We have the ambience noise, the land water resources, and all have you. So it varies according to the different operations that you undertake or the projects that are being undertaken.
Okay. Could you tell us much about the annual environmental report? Can you hear me?
We do not. Yeah, I can hear you. Did you say annual environmental reports?
Yes, please.
Okay. Annual environmental reports are generated and produced by us as EPA for public consumption. And in most cases, as a reportage to the Parliament and our sector ministry. But in this context, I think you are looking at environmental report from proponents. Is it not the case?
That's correct. That's correct.
If it is environmental report from the proponents, we do quarterly reports. We do ask for quarterly reports so that we keep track of what is happening, and then it aids us in monitoring activities. But annual reports would then encompasses all that has been generated within the various quarters and all that as a way of conclusion for the year.
So it is not that they are supposed to submit the annual environmental report in 12 months, because that's what the regulation was saying, that annual report should be submitted.
No, you do so, but you do the quarterly report.
We do quarterly report as well.
Then at the end of the year, you reconcile, and then we consolidate to get the annual report. Then you present or you submit. You cannot say that the law says I'm to submit annual report, so I wait till the end of the year before I submit the report. You are equally mandated to submit quarterly reports, and that will lead to the submission of annual report.
So I have questions from members of the chamber. So I'll go through those questions and we'll ask the participants to also ask questions. So one of the questions I have is that, how does EPA evaluate and regulate the environmental impact of manufacturing processes, particularly regarding emissions and waste management?
Well, emissions, that impacts on air quality and all that. We do have systems in place, and we do have monitors that tells us how much you are emitting, whether you are within standard or you are out of standard. So if you take an industry like the cement production industry, the particulates, we do measure the particulates that are being emitted to the atmosphere. And then when you take we have the air quality and point source or stack emissions and all others. But then a department within EPA, that's the environmental quality department, has the mandate to undertake all.
Doc, so I would go on to the next question, which is, are there any specific guidelines or incentives for integrated sustainable practices into logistic operations, such as reducing carbon emission or promoting eco-friendly packaging?
As at now, we do not. But it's something we can look at it in terms of best practices across the globe, international best practices. Something we can consider, but for now we do not have.
Okay, so do you have key environmental consideration for agro-processing activity, especially regarding water wastage, yes, pesticide management, and soil conservation?
Yes, we do have. We do have through the CCMC, that's Management Center within the we permit and then we regulate the use of pesticides and other chemicals on the agriculture footprint. The whole concept of managing these pesticides and the agrochemicals in the system has to do in conformation with customs. That's the entry point. We do have lots of smuggling in the system that do not pass through our permitting regimes at the port of entry. This time, let me say the permitted port of entry. So those that comes through the back door are difficult to be monitored and then to be regulated. And that is where the challenge is. It's a huge challenge that I must admit that most of these things found their way to the market. Having said that, to deepen the process, migrating onto the digitalization platform and the use of technology is the way to go. And several engagements, and very soon EPA will be fully complied or fully on board with this digitalization, and then also decentralization of our processes. We do have regional offices that take care of most of the area or ventures within their jurisdictions, aside the headquarters. But in most cases, most of these activities are registered at headquarters without the knowledge of the regions. So we are doing that cross-check to ensure full decentralization. And that also speeds up the processes of permitting, and then ensures effective and efficient monitoring systems where compliance is key, and that enforcement. So people recalcitrant, people who are non-compliant may serve as deterrent to others.
All right, thank you, Doc. Thank you so much for that. I'll still go ahead with some few questions. Are there any specific guidelines or technologies recommended for minimizing pollution and restoring land affected by extractive activities?
Pollution in which sector is very important? Is it wastewater pollution? Is it yes? The guidelines are there. They are available. It is about the enforcement. And you look at the socioeconomic structure of our society, most of these things, most of these important regulations or guidelines are facing challenges when you try to roll them out. For instance, if you're talking about vehicle emissions, studies have shown that 70% of our vehicles on the road will have to be grounded if strict adherence to vehicle emissions are to be carried out. So you can imagine here in Ghana, you wake up one day and 70% of the trotros, 70% of the taxis, the cargo trucks that are carting foodstuffs from the hinterlands to the cities. Then also, even the privately vehicles, look at the vehicles of the police force, and you have to ground 70% of them. The pushback and the repercussions that you have on the entire site. So without compromising on our mandate, we still have to take cue from the structure, the site, what we have on hand as of now. And going forward, what do we do? This is national conversation that we need to sit down and then talk through across board for us to know what we need to do and what has to be done and forward. I must commend the government that it is not for nothing that the government decided to promote the assemblage of new vehicles in the country so that we can phase out most of the rickety, highly polluting vehicles for new ones going forward. We've also embarked on this electric mobility, electric vehicles, as we traverse the energy transition course as a nation. That one too, we are encouraging investment. And if you care to know, the latest budget statement from the minister, the outgoing Minister of Finance, made it clear some incentives which quite are appetizing to those who want to bring in to do manufacturing. So all these things are on the drawing board, the table, but they look more futuristic than now, because we do not have the basic infrastructure, the economy, and the structure of our society does not support a robust compliance regime of some of these pollution lines that you're talking about. There are a few pollution lines that can be dealt with, and I think with little effort we should be able to do. For instance, effluent, wastewater management systems within our communities, within our sectors. The local government systems must be strengthened and empowered, because they have the mandate to deal with sanitation within their jurisdictions. So waste management plants within a pocket of them, within the various communities, should be able to solve most of these problems. So EPA going forward is in the process of applying most of these things and putting all these on the sector institutions, whether ministries or agencies, that have the primary mandate to do so. And the new law joins EPA to be on the neck of these state institutions who may renegade or may neglect their duties in these lines. So the possibility of arresting the issue of waste management, waste effluent in the system is quite good. I must also say that development partners, particularly the Danish Embassy or the Danish through Danida, are in the field, on the ground, with some projects all over. USAID are doing something, other agencies are also doing something, NGOs are trying to do something, but there's the need to consolidate and make sure they all come into one line by way of enforcing these things. So pollution at all levels must be tackled. The most difficult ones are just eliminated. There are few hanging ones that the populace, the citizen, once we are able to complete their awareness and their education, must be able to help the system. For instance, indiscriminate burning of waste. One clears compound, and the best way to dispose of the rubbish is to just ignite fire and then cause burning. The law catches up on them and they are punished seriously. But because we do not want to have more infractions, we will be continuously educating the public. There was an upset of the burning of car use tires in the system. We permitted recycling facilities that are into use these used tires. So gradually, they are becoming even a raw material source. So wealth has been placed on them. So people are gleefully collecting them and then sending them to the facilities. You may look around. Nowadays, you cannot see Coca-Cola cans, you cannot see beer cans, those beverages that are canned. You can't see them because we've permitted recycling facilities that are taking all these items or all these waste from the system for their recycling and production lines. So we believe the way to go is to ensure the recycling industry grows, to ensure that the circular economy blossoms. So those things we think they are waste can and should be used for manufacturing to other things, the reuse and the recycling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. So there's a question from the participants, one of the participants online. She wants to know what's the EPA's role in the changes that have been made in the new act in respect to our regulation of carbon markets another emerging activity in the energy transition era?
Yes, EPA have a supervisory role to start with. When you get to the agriculture, there's the development of methane credits with the rice paddy farming. So there's a technology to save water where methane are saved and sold onto the market. There is a cooperation between Switzerland and Ghana on this. Even though EPA spearheaded the whole activity and all that, it is ceded to the agricultural sector to trade in all these for and on behalf of the people of that.
The government recently introduced carbon tax, what we call the emission tax, and gives how much we charge per various categories. The question that has come up is, how would that be monitored? How would we know the emission that is being produced by a particular sector or a company? Does EPA has a role? I've heard people saying that the monitoring will be done by EPA. I just want to find out from you, is that the case?
Well, so far as it's anything that impacts on the environment, EPA has a role to play. The taxation on emission, if you so wishes, it's a revenue stream. And so it sits very well with the Ghana Revenue Authority. However, after the announcement of the law, the Finance Ministry through the Ghana Revenue Authority are undertaking stakeholder engagement and all that. And EPA, we are in the forefront. So we are all trying to find a way to come to an amicable settlement to ensure a smooth implementation of the policy or the law as it is now. So yes, we do have a role, and then we not only the role, we need to monitor to see how much we can. But all these are not so much of collecting monies from the people or from the populace per se, because the polluter pays principle is very much in force all over the world. So as a way of discouraging unnecessary pollutions in the system, this tax is there. If you want to, you go to London and you want to drive the eco zone or whatever, you must be ready and prepared to pay extra. And these things are working elsewhere. But I agree that we are the teeth end. We are just beginning with this kind of phenomenon. So it is not easy to get people to understand or to appreciate. But going forward, enough education and awareness may change people's perception and let people know, look, we are all in it together. We want to curb these emissions. So when necessary and where we can, we should be able to curb so we don't pay. As to the implementation, I've told you that we, EPA, we have said that, look, we need to sit down and then iron out a few things and to aid GRA to be able to carry out the full implementation without any major hitches.
Yes, so there's a question about management of trees in urban areas, especially how trees are being destroyed, how green spaces are being destroyed in Accra. Airport City has a terrible heat island. So the question is, we have missed an opportunity there. What steps is EPA taking to avoid any disaster in other areas, especially in developing urban areas?
Yes, again, we do have a culture that does not support or does not help with this urban forestry phenomenon. Kumasi, for instance, used to be the garden city years back, but for expansion and population explosion, we may still have these trees in there. But as population explodes, as expansion, these green areas may have to give in for road construction, for construction of other infrastructure or edifices that impacts so many. But next one thing that we can and we should be able to do this in integration with that infrastructure development integrated into the greening naturally. And I wouldn't want to blame our architects and the construction engineers anyway, but from time immemorial, we were not ushered into that kind of thing. All that we needed, or we were told, is that you clear the land to make to build. And clearing the land means removing all the vegetation, including trees, which was a very negative thing. Today, we at EPA have undertaken and then also informed all state institutions, agencies that has something to do with urban development, particularly the district, municipal, and then the metropolitan assemblies, to the end that if you want to take a tree, for whatever reason, you need to come to EPA for a permit. Failure to do so, and we catch you, you are caught. I mean, you are liable to some sanctions or some punitive measure. That is in place. Today, as we speak, we do have, or we are employing the already known technology of transferring grown-up trees to a more secured place in order to give way for development, other than cutting it off. And I may say with all emphasis that when the cathedral site, the new ongoing cathedral building site, most of the grown-up tall big trees were uprooted and then replanted here in Ghana, and we succeeded. We have mentioned that we have concerns with the arbitrary tree planting programs that often goes on by individuals or by organizations. Where you plant the tree, you must be sure that the next 2-3 months, the place is not earmarked for something, particularly road expansion and all that. So, urban tree permits are required by law, but as to that the populace adhere to or people adhere to is another thing. We do have institutions like UDS, the University of Development Studies. They do have a guest house alongside the police headquarters. They wanted some development. They wanted to cut down about 3 trees. We at EPA permitted them. We said, taking the 3 trees, we have got to plant 10 more in more secure. And they did that. And no money, want public to understand and to appreciate this concept or this phenomenon. It's about getting the goods. My attention has been drawn to the airport site. Talked about. We have written to the airport authority. I think tomorrow the letter must go. They own the land. They have the land. We've written to them, wanting to partner with them to develop that place, a huge greenery section. And when that is agreed upon, we will bring on board the Forestry Commission, who also has the mandate to ensure urban forestry as well. So these are what I can tell.
Thank you very much, Doc. We'll ask a few questions because understanding the engagement. So we'll ask a few questions. So in relation to the environmental impact assessment reports, does EPA follow up to verify whether the field or the stakeholder were duly consulted and other assessment reported on were indeed carried out?
Yes, it's most often the case because you may have people who express concern. I mean, they may not want the project to come on. So definitely, they will make their complaints or they will make their petitions known to EPA, and that will necessarily carry us onto the floor. Even without that, once we receive the report, it is also to complete the entire report that EPA team had visited the site physically. The team members are spelled out, the time they went there, when they finished, before, and they give their recommendations. So it is the case that we do.
All right, thanks. On the issue about galamsey, there are a lot of talks about it that is affecting our water bodies. So I want to find out from you, what steps is EPA taking by collaborating with the Minerals Commission to ensure that all open pits in galamsey communities are closed and the land rehabilitated?
Yes, this canker, this problem has been quite a difficult one to traverse. The between Minerals Commission, and most often we leave out the Water Resource Commission. They are the primary owners of the water resource, the water bodies. And then the Minerals Commission has the mandate to issue out mining permits to people. Ours is to oversee the impact, if there are possible impacts. How are you going to ameliorate, or how are you going to be able to avoid or limit the impact on the environment? So the new law does not necessarily call in EPA as a collaborator, but as an adversary kind of thing. Policing Minerals Commission and water resources, insisting that once you give the permit to ABC, it is your duty to ensure that it does not go overboard as per your requirement. And you, the Water Resource Commission, you own the water body. So take steps at all costs to protect your water body. Otherwise, EPA comes on you. That's the import of the new law. So the new order is going to be not EPA being part or being a collaborator in ensuring that. EPA will then be on top to see that you, by law, you are mandated to protect the water body. It is within your jurisdiction, within your mandate to do so. If you are unable to do, EPA can haul you before whatever, and then seek answers from what you are doing. So very soon, the being in collaboration and all that will be off. EPA must be seen as the policeman, the environmental police, who have to ensure that all things are done properly. And that notwithstanding, it is a collective responsibility for all of us to ensure that we get this unfortunate bad practices making the bad. We cannot look on and see our water body being destroyed in the name of mining and looking for them. We do know and agree that the conflict between economic rights and then whatever rights we do have as people must be commensurate with the environmental rights. It is one right that nobody is talking about. As a lawyer, tilted with the environment and all that, it is our duty, and I take it upon as a duty to ensure that environmental rights are very much enshrined in our legal discourse. So if you are destroying the environment, it is some people's rights that you are infringing on. The law must take keep of it. So basically, I agree that it is a collective responsibility to ensure that. And legally, various state institutions, including the state assemblies, municipal, metropolitan, and then specific related institutions will be held accountable.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. In respect of air quality, and emission. How is EPA addressing air quality concerns and working to reduce emission from various sources? Over
yes,
here.
In recent time.
Yes, yes.
Can I go on?
Yes, please do.
In recent times, you all witnessed the cloudy nature of the atmosphere, and came out to report of air quality, poor air quality. I mean, the index, the monitors read a very alarming level. So, together with Meteorological Authority, Ghana Health Services, we came together to warn the public of dangers of the air quality coming down. Those who do have some underlying conditions, health issues, guidelines to be followed, including the use of masks, and also not staying too much away. But we were told by Meteorological Authority on the onset of the Hamilton that it was going to be severe, and that there was that wind blowing over the Sahara, picking, the desert, picking these dust particles, particulates, then coming across down south. And also the sea breeze blowing over the sea, also moving middle belt and northwards, collided and water vapor and these dust particles constituted those heavy clouds that we saw or we witnessed. So you can talk of force majeure, that is something natural you cannot do much about on that scope. Then there's also the man-made, our own negligence and our own activities impacting on the air quality systems. And the most critical candidate had to do with the vehicular emissions, where fumes, carbon dioxide, and all of these things escape into the atmosphere. Then we do have the agricultural practices. You recall or you remember that during the Hamilton and all that, our land preparation for planting purposes by our farmers and all that entails some form of burning, what we call slash and burn, and that also allows these carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. So there have been a collective sources of these emissions. Thanks to God, we were told by the Meteorological Authority that on the onset of heavy rains, we will help to bring down some of these fugitive gases, fugitive particulates that have escaped into the atmosphere. That's why we've seen a limit of the cloudy or the misty atmospheric conditions. Monitors have begun reading some repression figures. I mean, the quality is improving gradually. But we must tackle what we do. That is within our remit as a people. We must tackle what we do. I've mentioned the indiscriminate burning of waste products, including the used car tires. And we've been able to find solutions to that by licensing and permitting recycling facilities that are off-taking these things off the environment. The next thing has to do with plastic waste the system. That is the next sort of core, the challenge that we're going to face, trying to remove all of them out of the system. We have what we call legacy plastic waste. We have been there in the system for years, 30, 20 years. We cannot afford to add on to. So this year is a year of attack and action on plastic waste. That's going to be spearheaded by EPA. We involve all sectors of the economy, the people, the public, to get involved so we can do that. Once we are able to do that, then the vehicular emissions. UPLA and EPA had a cause to come together to produce these standards Is it the time to apply the standards immediately and ensure compliance? That is good for society. We are ready to roll it out. Is the society ready to absorb the repercussions, and then also to ensure the success of the implementation of these strategies and the enforcement, compliance measures. These are the things that we need to talk about. But in our own individual selves, we can help. We are so fortunate that no smoking in public spaces is helping, or it has helped. So very much limited are the cigarette smoking activity, which tend to impact on so many people. So many people simply becomes passive smokers simply because the next person around is smoking. We are lucky to have that one nip in the bag. What we can also do further is to ensure clean cooking stove. Most of the method that we use to do our cooking, particularly our women food, are damaging, have serious health implications, apart from damaging or destroying the air quality system. Physical health damage issues that goes on with it. In recent times, myself, the Second Lady of the Republic, Ajia Samira, we had the opportunity and the privilege to host the U.S. EPA administrator. He was in town a few weeks back, and he taught some areas in Jamestown. So we have all these conjoined socioeconomic aspects that lands with environmental sustainability. So it is not a straightforward battle to say that, yes, I'm at EPA, everybody should stop smoking, everybody should, all cars that are emitting should be parked somewhere, usually cement factories to be closed down and all that. So what we got to be integrated approach to the problem. Every sector being brought on board to see how best we can minimize by employing technology to match it better. There were some, when I came to office, there were some 2 or 3 iron and steel fabricating factories. We had a cost to close them down, and then ensured that they brought in state-of-the-art machinery, apply the appropriate technologies, and they were able to reduce emissions more than 70%. So these are some of the things that we can employ to ensure a reduction of the emissions.
All right, thank you, Doc. We are running out of time, so just 2 questions and we are off. Yeah, just 3 questions. So I want, and this borders on compliance or an enforcement of your law. So how does EPA enforce these environmental regulations, and what are the penalty regime for non-compliance? And the second question relates to what efforts are you taking to educate and support businesses and individuals in complying with your regulation?
Yes, we have administrative sanctions, we have legal sanctions, and yes, we can even close down the facility. And if you look at the EPA permit, it is written there and then that the permit can be revoked at any point in time. If EPA has a cause to do so, it has a cause to believe that the proponent is recalcitrant in ensuring compliance and also going against our rules and regulations. We can withdraw the permit and then alert other related institutions to not to recognize your operations as well. So we have that plan. But I must also say, and the public must know, and this forum must know, that EPA is not a law unto itself. There is a checks and balances as to how far EPA can go and to what extent EPA can work within its mandate. There can be ultra bias, and the EPA can go overboard. So the Act 490 has a remedy to that if a proponent does not agree with a decision by EPA. For instance, you apply for environmental permit and going through all the process, EPA says no, it's declined, which we most often do. We do that. If you have good cause to decline, you decline. If you are not satisfied, the law allows you to petition the minister, the sector minister. The sector minister then is enjoined by law to put up a committee, independent committee to look at that. At that point, EPA then stands accused. So the findings, the committee will inform the minister what decision to take. If it comes out that EPA was after all wrong and unfair to the property, the minister may direct EPA to go and do the needful and then go ahead and grant. If the committee finds out that EPA is right, then the status quo remains. In the period where the proponent applies or petitions the minister, the whole mandate, the powers of EPA is then freeze or is frozen. I mean, get frozen until the minister comes out with his or her own verdict. So at that time, whatever the minister says, the decision the minister says becomes an administrative order to EPA. We are all again under the legal regime. The proponent may decide not to go to the minister, but they decide to go to court of law straight ahead. And at that point, too, EPA will be called in to give evidence and all that. So the court of law may order EPA to go and do A, B, C. That one, it becomes a legal order, a court order. So we are not lord unto ourselves. People should get to it because we are institution with human population, so we can also go wrong. But most of the time, we are right. So the sanctions regimes vary from the activity to the gravity of the offense or the crime. And here I want to take advantage to tell that environmental offense may not necessarily be the same as environmental crime. Environmental offense may be dealt with and administratively you are sanctioned. But when it borders on criminality, environmental crime, necessarily of law. At that point, it calls for prosecution. So environmental crime will necessarily have to be put before trial, before court of law. So then the sanctions are either you are fined, imprisoned, or both, or you are set free. So people should know that you may cause an environmental offense that can be dealt with within the remit of administrative management systems. But when crime is established, the prima facie case is established that environmental crime is location, evidence used is so convincing that we can extract conviction or punishment from the court of law, we may take it to court. In that vein, Interpol reports periodically to EPA, alerting EPA of the environmental crimes around the sub-region and even sometimes within our own jurisdiction. So sanctions vary according to the gravity of the offense or the crime committed, and then which sector does the offense emanates. Then what's the second one?
What steps are taken to support just from an education aspect?
Yes, we've embarked on a lot of education programs, and we do have a strategy that we adopted, and very much so. The media as key partners in this conversation. So the media have been in the forefront and helping them. Recently, we've engaged Parliament, yes, in environmental discourse. So time and again, through the Parliament Select Committee of Environment, we engage members of Parliament and then put across some of these things. And EPA is spearheading the Climate Vulnerable Forum. That is an organization comprising of 68 countries across the globe, Africa, Caribbean, Middle East, Asia, and all that. EPA has been able to bring parliamentary sentiment on board of that. So Parliament is very much aware of what is going on. We are saying that countries that are so vulnerable to climate change impacts, of which Ghana is one, have special needs to get people to understand the dynamism of the whole phenomenon that does seem so abstract. And to some people, does not even exist. Something scientists and some of us are simply pushing across. But the reality is there. Until you get flooded, everything washes away. You are left with nothing that you do. Until there is a heavy heat wave that people will be perishing because of heat, then you get to it. Until there is a fire, wildfire, bushfires, they're ravaging certain villages and all that, destroying life and properties, then you will come to understand. So in the wake of all that, through the ingenuity of our president, and now the who happens to be the chair of this CBN, we've been able to fight through globally to get loss and damage concept accepted, where climate-induced catastrophes, property that lost lives and all that, can we have a fund to get people back to normalcy when these things happen? All these educations are ongoing, but I must admit that that not been effective and intensive at that much. So going forward, need the support of all of you, including the business community, to come in and help so that we can put all these measures in place. Another important message I want to put across, since this forum belongs to the Chamber of Commerce, there is this CPP, Climate Prosperity Fund, that has been developed under the auspices of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, that entails most bankable investment portfolios that the private sector can take advantage of. And in the space of that, it built, I won't say risk-free, but less risk to investment through the Law Act 1039 of 2020, Public-Private Partnership Act. That law comes in hand to sort of pushing the private investor wanting to partner a public entity like EPA, so we save a lot and we save the planet, and our people will live in peace and harmony with their family.
Yeah, so thank you very much for making time to join us today. I know you have a very busy schedule. I want to commend you for the good work that you are doing at the EPA, particularly given the fact that there are new regulations and laws that are being worked on, and very, very soon we're going to have a new law, which is a very good step. But I have some few suggestions to make, and one relates to how to have access to the EPA, particularly on application process. I think it will be good to have an electronic way of making an application, so that it makes it easier for business community to apply for license. The second thing I want to suggest relates to client service unit. Maybe we have to, I'm not sure that you have it, so that it's easier for the business community to reach out to EPA on questions and respond. Because sometimes when we as lawyers, we are doing work, it's difficult to have information from the EPA. So we think that if we lawyers are struggling, I'm sure the business community would also be in a worse situation. So maybe we have to improve on that aspect. But thank you very much for making time. We are very happy about it. On behalf of the Executive Council of the UKGCC, on behalf of Dr. Joba and the team, I want to thank you so much for today. We are very pleased for joining us, and we thank everyone on the line for making time to join us. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Theo, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you, sir. So your final comment.
Yeah, from EPA, we are also thankful for the engagement. It has been quite interactive and also given us some insight into what the public and at this point the chamber may want to know from us. We've taken key things into consideration, and we know it will help us to come up with more efficiency. The client service unit we do have corporate. What we will do now is to ensure that they are very much on social media platforms. I mean, we are available. The interface should be improved, and we will do so. And what have you? We are thankful. Pleased to be with you.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice day, sir. Thanks, everyone. Bye.